Welcome back. It's another spooky season review. I'm John Stark from MacTheMovieGuy.com, and I am still playing with flashlights and creepy voices, even when celebrating the 25th anniversary of Deep Blue Sea. Yes. This is a shark movie. Ooh. I feel like I did one of those. Anyway, welcome back. We're going to talk about Deep Blue Sea, a film I actually kind of adore. In a silly, goofy love way. I always love listening to other film critics admit to having guilty pleasures. The other day I listened to a rather well-respected film critic admit that he loves Armageddon. And I was like, oh, look at that. So do I. Why don't we talk about stuff like that more? Like, it's okay to love, popcorn movies like this that are just meant to entertain. And dude, really, this is not trying for an Oscar, but it's fun. So I've seen Deep Blue Sea, this has got to be at least above 10 times. So this is one of the ones, this is what I would call a desert island movie. Because when you're on a desert island, what you want to watch is a movie about sharks that are going to eat you should you try to leave the desert island. So absolutely. It does have audio description out there in the multiverse. And the cast includes Thomas Jane, Saffron Burrows, Samuel L. Jackson, LL Cool J, Michael Rappaport, Stellan Skarsgard. So we have a pretty solid cast to work with here. And, of course, most of them are just shark bait. Who's going to make it out alive? I don't know, but I might end up spoiling the whole movie for you. It's one of those movies that when you're like, well, what's your why do you like this movie so much? I was thinking in the last 25 years, one of the things that I've noticed is when I finally started listening to podcasts, I noticed there was a Deep Blue Sea podcast. There are people who love movies so much, and they were like, what are we going to name our podcast? What do we feel like represents us as people? Deep Blue Sea. I love that. To be able to pick a movie like that and be like, I feel like this movie title says everything you need to know about us. So, but for me, man, I saw it in theaters, and I actually ended up getting this on VHS, and I had a VHS copy of it. And my friends and I was in high school when this movie came out. We snuck this in and somehow convinced for our end of, year choir party. We convinced our teacher that this movie was PG-13, and we watched this in class instead of watching Grease for like the 27th time, or Sister Act 2 or something like that. One of the few movies that seems to always like rotate into movie day, So there were a couple times where she was like, are you sure this is, yeah, it's PG-13. Yeah, that's PG. Don't ask questions. The movie really isn't exceptionally gory and violent. And the cursing is not like all over the place. He's not dropping F-bombs nearly as much as, Samuel Jackson would like to drop F-bombs. So it's a pretty tame PG-13, all things included, when you actually think about it. So, yes, and so I decided for its 25th anniversary, this movie came out in 1999, to sit down and play around with flashlights. And if you're like, I feel like you've done this recently, I have, and I'm doing it again. So, Deep Blue Sea. features the story of a group of scientists who are out in the middle of the ocean in this facility. It's like Jurassic Park for sharks. I've heard that used before. It's not really like Jurassic Park for sharks because they didn't have to bring the sharks back to life, but whatever. Uh, and they're out in the middle of the ocean in this facility, and there are like 3 levels to the facility. It's all titanium, and we meet the guy who's funded it all, played by Samuel L. Jackson. He's getting a tour of the facility. There's just been at the top, there's this little like scene where I guess one of the sharks got out, and Thomas Jane, who's the shark wrangler, had to go get the shark and bring him back. And I love when Jackson and Jane have the encounter, and we learn more about Jane's past. It's sort of this like unnecessary criminal past that he has. He also has no like actual apparent experience in shark wrangling, yet that's his job, you know? Like he doesn't, it's like, I know what you did. Yeah? Well, I'm here, you know? I'm operating by the terms of my parole. But do you know anything about sharks? Like, you know, like, are you just the only one who's willing to get in the water? Like, they put a job up, like a job posting, and like you were the only one that applied, and they were like, well, he's got a record, but nobody else wants to jump in with giant sharks. So, and you've got Saffron Burrows plays the sort of like lead scientist, although Stellan Skarsgard is, I don't know, kind of like her co-lead. He's also a scientist that's helping her on the project. There is another girl that's down there. I forgot the name of the actress. Not everybody in this film made it out famous. Michael Rappaport's here. We've got LL Cool J is the chef. For some reason, he has a parrot underground when you think about it, because he's technically underwater in this facility, and he has this bird that talks back to him. It's just kind of there. I feel like Renny Harlin was like, hey, you know what? I've got a cool idea for a shot, and I need a bird in the movie. Can we make that happen? And they were like, I guess. I mean, we're underwater. I don't know how we're going to get a bird in the movie, but we'll think about it. And then they came up with this plot. And then he gets that cool scene of the shark leaping out of the water and chomping down on the bird. So, yeah, it's basically just the sharks obviously get smart, and then you find out they have been genetically modified, even though it's illegal to do so, because Saffron Burrows wanted to speed up the process to get to this cure for Alzheimer's is what they're looking for. They believe that if they increase the brains of these sharks, that they will be able to harvest them, and it does show that it works. So to be fair, it's one of those things where it's sort of like, oh, well, I mean, damn, we lost all that Alzheimer's research along the way. I mean, yes, we played around with nature, but we actually found something that worked, and we haven't really found that. 25 years later, we are getting close to kind of a drug that slows down Alzheimer's. Like, it's kind of a trial drug that's just now clearing FDA approval, and we'll see once it starts getting out there how well that works. But 25 years ago, she figured out if you enlarge the brain of a shark, you'll get it. So, but then again, I feel like scientists were like, I mean, we could try that, but did you see how these people died in the movie? And they were like, yeah, I don't really. I don't want to die like them. Also, these are not great whites. These are Makos. So there you go. Fun fact, not Jaws. Yeah, it's just about the sharks, because they have large brains, they end up attacking the facilities, and what they're trying to do is flood it, so that, as we find out later on, the bottom part underwater is titanium, so they can't break through it, but the above ground part is steel, the fencing around it. So if they lower it, I don't know how they know that. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's one of those things. I feel like they would have to know to lower it the whole way until there is no more fence, and then they can just like free willy over it. You know, I don't think that they know the difference. I mean, I know we increased their brain size. So this is where I acknowledge the film is silly. Is it's like, I don't think just because you increase their brain size doesn't mean that they gain knowledge of titanium and steel, as sharks, where they're like, oh, guys, did you check out that wall over there? I don't know. Feels like it's titanium to me, but I'm smelling some steel up there. If we could only lower the titanium just a little bit, we might get to the steel. And steel's a little bit weaker than titanium. So if we could get to the steel, we could probably break through. I think they're having that kind of thought. I think they're like, fence. If no fence here, we swim. So they're just trying to get rid of the fence. Anyway, but yeah, I didn't say my favorite movies were the smartest movies of all time. I just said I enjoyed them the most. I like this film from beginning to end. The only thing I would change, the only thing that I would go back and change, and this is like, I think this should be like a horror movie podcast. Here, I'm giving you guys an idea for a horror movie podcast. Any fans out there watching, start up a podcast and go through horror movies and be like, who would you have saved? Like, who didn't deserve to die? Because I think there's like I think in every horror movie, there's a character who you're like, I don't know, I would have saved that person. I like that person too much. I think they deserve to live. And here, they interpreted that as LL Cool J's Cool Chef, which is fine, I guess. And maybe it's weird to have like 3 dudes live, but I would have saved Michael Rappaport. I was really loving him. His general mindset wasn't like of the, oh, I definitely want this dude to get chomped on, not that Samuel Jackson wasn't, but Samuel Jackson's scene is just so cool, whereas Michael Rappaport's is just like one of the deaths. Samuel Jackson's death in here is iconic, and the audio description here, what I loved about Deep Blue Sea's audio description is it's one of those that has like a really, like a narrator that's really going for it, and like he like really gets in the action scenes with you, and like when the shark jumps out of the water, he gets like really excited about it. And it also, they managed to get the audio description in after the jump. So for anybody who hasn't seen it, it's just like, oh shit. And then it explains. And then you're like, oh, that's what just happened. Oh, wow. So you actually get the jump scare instead of, a lot of times with us blind folk and jump scares, it's a lot of times we get it before. Because it kind of depends on what the sound is like afterwards. It's either before or afterwards, but we can't do it before here because he's in the middle of speaking. So we do it right after, and it works perfectly fine. But no, this dude is really into it, man. At the beginning of the film, and he's listing like the title credits. I love when he's like, he gets down to the movie title, and because like word for word comes up, he's like, Deep Blue Sea. And I was like, yes. Because I feel like another narrator would have just been like, Deep Blue Sea, directed by Renny Harlin, produced by, it's just like, fuck, you're boring. This guy's like, he's so totally into it. He's like, yes, word for word, Deep Blue Sea. So props on the audio description. This is, it's an enjoyable film. And I'm glad it's 25 years. And like I've asked myself with many of these other anniversary releases, does this stand the test of time? Hell yes, it does. Because this film has fans. This film has fans who recognize the silliness and ridiculosity of this. Like the ridiculousness. That's that Rob Dyrdek show. This movie would be on there. Of it. It's silly. It's super fun. And I don't know why it has garbage sequels. That's we don't need that. I've never seen them. I don't need, when they were like, oh, we got straight to video sequels to Deep Blue Sea. I was like, no. If you want a legacy sequel to this thing and get Thomas Jane and Ella Cool J back in the ocean, then maybe we'll talk. Where they're like, it's like a Jurassic World, but they this time they bring back the 2 survivors, and they're like, oh, we need the expertise of the only 2 people who know what's going on. And then Ella Cool J's like chef has gone on to like become like some sort of shark expert. That would be great. Like in the time that's passed, he's like, oh, I used to be a chef, and now actually I have a PhD in marine biology. Time has passed. Um, so yeah, I would do that movie, but I'm not going to do Deep Blue Sea 2 and 3. I don't. The world does not need to do those films. Um, so if you love shark movies, I don't know how you can't love Deep Blue Sea, because it's like it understands what a shark movie is, and it's just fun. It's not trying to. It's never trying to be Jaws. So many other shark movies like have the oh my god, like how do we can we ever be Jaws? No, you can never be Jaws. Stop trying. Um, but Deep Blue Sea isn't trying to be Jaws. Deep Blue Sea is trying to be something else. It's trying to be fun action horror, and it works rather well. Good casting, interesting cast too, of a bunch of rising stars. So people who wouldn't necessarily in 1999 have been able to anchor their own movie, but work really well in the context when you put them all together. So I'm a big fan of Deep Blue Sea. This is a desert island movie for me. And of course that means I'm giving it an A+. This is one of my, unabashedly, this is one of my favorite movies of all time. I didn't say it was one of the best movies of all time. Favorite movies are different than best movies. I think in many ways we are influenced more by favorite movies, which often do include an overlap of best movies. But I think a lot of people, if we're really breaking it down, have a lot of favorite movies that wouldn't also be considered best movies of all time. So, but for me personally, I have to give it the golden grade of A+ and say, yeah, this one's coming to the desert island with me. This one's making the journey. So, yeah, Renny Harlin has not been directing things very well, and I kind of wish he would just sit down and watch Deep Blue Sea and be like, so what did I do right here that people are still enjoying 25 years later for all of its nonsense? And just make more of these. And less Strangers Chapter 1. Nobody needs that. Anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. And I'll see you guys on the other side.